you guys got, obviously you grade the players, but how would you grade management, and what was your biggest disappointment and probably your biggest success in any moves or non-moves?
You know, we get graded on the success of the team. That's how it is in this franchise. You know, I know a lot of franchises are happy to get to the first round or get advanced beyond the first round. You know, we certainly did no worse than we did a year ago, but we're disappointed. That's not how, you know, we grade ourselves getting into the second round. You know, we thought going into the season, and even up till a week ago, that we were one of 3 or 4 or 5 teams, you know, that could contend for a championship. And it's hard to get in a position if you're in this league with 30 owners that are very competitive, different market sizes, different rules, contracts that are already in place that now have to operate under different rules. It's really hard to get into a position where you really feel going into training camp that, hey, we have a shot at it. And we felt we did. So to watch, you know, the semifinals in the conference and in the finals, it's a disappointing feeling.
Can you clear the air at all about, is there a difference in the way you had to deal with upper management and the ownership this year as opposed to, let's say, the last 3 or 4 or 5 years? Or maybe just
well, I think you're certainly no. Well, there's 2 things. I mean, you know, well, actually, I'll just limit it to one thing and keep it simple. You know, the last 2 or 3 years, no, there's been no difference. You know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you know, I dealt, you know, more direct with Dr. Buss. Maybe even a little bit longer than that. And over the last 5 or 6 years, you know, the 3 of us have been working very closely together, and my relationship with ownership right now is really no different in the last 2 or 3 years. It hasn't changed this year versus 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years ago. But when I took the job in 2000 to maybe 2007, it was a little different. But not in the last 2 or 3 years.
If you put this roster together under the old CBA, how will the new collective bargaining agreement affect your ability to make moves and assemble teams going forward?
There are quite a few restrictions. You know, the rules are different. Penalties are more punitive. Options or assets, avenues to improve the team. You know, the exceptions that existed with the last CBA are fewer and not the same as they are today with teams that are beyond the cap. I don't see us being below the cap anytime soon, so the only way we've been able to improve our team over the last 10 years, really through exceptions and via trade. The exception route is severely limited right now.
Will the more punitive luxury tax affect your ability? Do you see yourself
Absolutely.
trying to avoid
I think it's going to,
taxing?
I can't see us avoiding the tax. You know, Dr. Buss, under the correct circumstances, has always been willing to pay a tax. But if you just look at the levels of the new tax in a year from now, you could see that tax being paid a year or 2 ago or even this year is dramatically different 2 years from now. So that would have to be a consideration, and I know every club in the league is aware of it as well. I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
So when you were saying that you think there's going to be some changes, you seem to be referencing free agents. I was reading what you said, right, because players have decisions and you have decisions. Beyond that, do you see this team being more aggressive in pursuing a trade this summer than?
Why not? Sure. I mean, when you lose, you know, we went through it last year. I'm not, you know, and we didn't make really, other than at the trade deadline, we didn't do anything last year. But when you lose, you know, before you think you should have lost, you have to open up all opportunities.
Andrew Bynum goes into the last year of his contract. Is there any thought about sitting down with him and
What's that?
Well, I think the only thing that's out there right now is he's eligible, for his present contract to be extended via an existing option. Yeah, and yes, we intend to do that. I think we have until mid-June or late June to do that. And that's step one. Anything beyond that we'll discuss, internally and, proceed if that's the course that we're going to take.
What's your
There's
level?
a lot of things to say after the loss in Oklahoma City, really directed at you.
What was that?
Toby had a lot of things to say about the franchise, really directed at you, and he seemed to express a lot of confidence in you. That's a little different than it was maybe even 4 or 5 years ago. I'm sure you remember those days. Can you sort of talk about the way your relationship with him has evolved?
Yeah, I didn't hear the comments. Okay, so this is the first, I've heard of it.
He basically just said you're the best, and you'll make us win. Everybody agree with
Well,
that? Summarization?
I look at that as pressure. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Kobe and I have a great working relationship. We don't. We've been together now since he came here as a 17-year-old, young kid playing video games, and now he's been here. It seems like forever. Our relationship, doesn't transcend, what you'd expect from people working together for that many years. It's not like we're dinner partners. I just make it a point to, try not to get too close to anybody because it's a business, but I want to keep it professional. And I try to be straightforward and honest with the players as best I can. Sometimes that means saying nothing, rather than saying something that might not be true. So it's comforting to hear that he has that kind of, confidence. I think what he's also saying at the same time is he has the same confidence, because we've said it many, many times, that there's 3 of us that are making the decisions. And I think what he's saying is I believe in the organization, which at this point in time, includes Dr. Buss and Jim Buss.
You said there will be some changes. Are there any particular needs you think this team needs to do?
Well, we have to, see what plays out, with this whole free agent thing. And as I mentioned, I haven't sat down with ownership yet, to know, what their thoughts are. I think we did address, our primary need with the in-season trade, to get a ball handling guard that's young and we think has a bright future. But he has the ability to opt out, so we don't know where that's going to lead us. Our front court is a good front court. Off the bench, our third player at this point would be Josh McRoberts. So you'd always have to add another player or 2 to your front court. 2 of our small forwards are free agents, so we'd have to add a player at that slot as well. So barring any kind of a dramatic change to our roster, I think primarily those are areas we have to address.
Do you have a better sense of what type of players Mike Brown needs to work in this system? And I know you have to kind of do this on the fly this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think we all have a better feel, but I'm not sure going into the season, with a shortened training camp and 2 preseason games, that he had all the information he needed about our players going into the season. If you have 4 weeks and then you have 2 or 3 weeks before the season even starts in terms of preseason, preseason, because a lot of times the coaches are in the office in early September, the players come back in Labor Day, and they're in the office, they're playing, they're coming by to see the coaches, and then 3 weeks later you start training camp, and then you have 4 weeks, and there's a real good period there for coaches to get to know players and vice versa. None of that existed. We had one day there was no basketball, the next day there was an open gym, and then the day after that training camp started. So I think even our coaches now know more about our team certainly much more about our team than they thought they did prior to the beginning of the season.
Is there anything to read into the fact that Kobe isn't having his exit interview here and you guys are meeting somewhere?
No, I would meet with any of the players if they asked to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the guys, it's more convenient. They come, they clean out their locker room, you know, they meet with the community relations people, they sign some balls, and, you know, find out about what the young kids get the schedule for the summer league. Certainly Kobe's not interested in that. So when we left the plane, I talked to him and I said, let's hook up, and he said, fine, if I had his new number, and, you know, so we're going to get together either at the end of this week or early next week.
Are you comfortable with him playing the Olympics?
You know, I played myself, and it's hard to say to anybody, you know, not to represent your country. So I understand the risk, you know, he's taken and the organization's taken, but it is something onto itself that's different, you know, that separates, you know, an athlete from, you know, the only thing you can compare it to is winning an NBA championship. So it's hard to say, no, it's not something you should do.